Good evening, St. Lucia, and welcome to Chill and Chat. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis, and today I have with me the endorsed candidate for the St. Lucia Labour Party, Mr. Wayne Girard, who will be representing Ancillary Canneries. Mr. Girard, welcome to Chill and Chat.
Good evening, Mondi. How are you?
I'm well. I'm glad to have you.
Happy to be here.
Great. So, Wayne, let's get into it. You have been endorsed from October 2019. And now we have you, our first guest for Chill and Chat.
Yes.
Tell us about Wayne Girard.
Thank you for having me here, Mondi. So I grew up in the community of Jacmel. I was an acolyte in the Catholic Church in Jacmel.
Oh.
I spent my formative years in Jacmel. Then I went on to the RC Boys Infant and Primary School. Then I went on to the Cashers Comprehensive School, and then I went on to the A-Level College. I then spent 3 years working at Lime, Cable and Wireless, and then went on to university to study business with law. And then I subsequently did corporate valuations at the University of Oxford Side Business School. And I'm currently doing a program on public leadership at the Harvard School of Government.
Very nice. Wow. Where do you find the time, though?
in between meals.
Great. Wayne, you spent some time away, and now you're back home, you've literally given up a lot to come back to St. Lucia to run for elective politics. How do you feel about that?
Well, it is a community that has made me who I am. I care deeply about my community. I'm of the view, if you want to see something done, you need to do it yourself. So I'm aspiring to be that change that I want to see in the community. A lot has changed in the community. A lot has gotten better, but a lot has also gotten significantly worse. And I think it's important, if you are able to do so, to make that contribution for a better community.
Okay. And this again was a choice, because you could have been anything. I mean, like you've always said, you worked on the Wall Street of London, but coming home.
Yeah, I spent some time working in Canary Wharf, which is the financial district of London. I learned quite a bit, and it's something. It's one of those lessons that that never leaves you. So, for example, when I approach the political leader of the Labour Party, I can't just come to him with the problem. I need to also come with the solution. And that's some of the things you learn working in very intense environments. People have little time for you to tell them what the problem is. Everybody knows what the problem is. The difference is, are you able to come to them with also the solution?
Okay.
So that's one of the fundamental lessons that I learned spending time working in the UK.
Okay. And you, again, the product of Ancillary Canneries.
Correct.
You have that family name. When you hear Girard's, you automatically think of your millet, Jacmel area. How has the reception been?
I mean, to be quite honest, the reception has been based more so on I have done some stuff in the community, but really and truly the reception is really based on that contribution that my family has made to the community over the years, whether it is my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. It is on their shoulders that I stand now to try to represent, with the intention to represent Ancillary Canneries. I mean, I have done some stuff. I mean, I've been contributing to most of the schools within the community, sporting activities, educational activities, but the truth of the matter is I'm standing on shoulders of my family. Yeah. So I have a very deep responsibility to make sure that I do what I say I'm going to do, and ensure that I leave the legacy and the reputation of my family intact when I get off the stage.
Very nice. So you're guarding that name and for
jealously. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So tell me, why is it that Wayne Girard, successful businessman, when I hear about you, it's that you were a black man on the Wall Street in London.
It's really about becoming the change that you want to see, because I remember having this discussion with quite a few people, and the question was, do you use your whatever benefits that you accrue to yourself to assist your country from the outside, or do you get involved intimately and make that change? And it was sort of a very interesting question, but having had a look at the community, what it has become, if you really want to do something, I suppose the answer is to be that change you want to see, and I've made that point very clear. It is my determination, my passion to get involved in it, not for anything. I mean, I don't need to be a minister to wear a suit. This was my armor of the day. I wore it every day. I don't need to become a minister to travel business class. I'm already doing that. Or to stay in hotels. This is really about giving back to a community that made me who I am.
Yeah, and so young again, you're young, you have a young family, and you just literally, I don't want to say giving it up, but you literally changed course.
When I met, you see, the interesting thing is I met my wife when I was 19 and she was 16. So we've been together a very, very long time. And when we met then, it was always my intention to do well in my private life and then give back to my community. So it wasn't a surprise to her when that came very quickly. I mean, we're talking almost 23 years ago, so it's been a while, but the point is she was already aware that that was always my intention to give back to my community. So no surprise. So sacrifice on both ends for the greater good, I suppose.
And your family support, how has that been throughout your endorsement?
I mean, to be quite honest with you, I'm very fortunate in that I come from a family where once you decide to do something which is positive, they will support you. So if it's a situation of me doing something which was not positive, I would not have their support. There's no two ways about it. But because it's something that is positive, because they recognize it's something I've wanted to do for a very long time, I could say that I have the support of my family, my extended family.
Very good, and they're from the community. I mean, when you hear the name Girard.
I mean, I grew up seeing my grandmother giving pencils to kids going to school without, or exercise books. I mean, yesterday was Teacher Appreciation Day, and I visited the Jackmel School. I met with some of the teachers, and some of the same stories seems to be resurfacing, albeit it's a different requirement now. So there are still, for example, there's still a few dust and chalkboards at the Jackmel School. I think we need to move away from using the chalk and the dustboard and move into a more different scenario. So I had a pretty interesting time with them yesterday, and I suppose this is my intention. The owners of the business and the people who work in the business. I think the Labour Party represents the people who work in the business. And I've always recognized with that struggle, having come from a very modest family. So there was no other place but the Central Labour Party, to be quite honest.
But then you've in one point in your life you became I mean, and again, this is not a bad thing, because Labour Party is aspirational.
Correct. There's this misconception that Labour Party only represents the Malawi and not the aspirational. That's a big misconception. I've never been in a conversation with the hierarchy of the Labour Party when they say to us, oh, by the way, don't allow our people to want to aspire. Say to them that where they are now is where they should be. It's a party of aspiration. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Back to just growing up within the constituency, in the community, is it that Wayne Girard has just landed last year?
No, not at all. I mean, and it's something that I'm very proud of, to be quite honest. There's an issue for me in when one contributes to the community, that every single thing you do, you appear on national television, on the internet, to demonstrate what you're doing. I think there's a certain level of dignity that we need to reinstill in the community of ancillary canneries. It is not right that because someone is less fortunate, that you should parade them on national television or social media for your own narrow benefit. If it's a scholarship, I have no issue appearing on national television or the internet awarding a scholarship to someone. But anything that portrays them to be less than equal or less than everybody else, I don't think it's something we should be practicing. For me personally, I mean, people have their views. You're a politician. You need to sort of drain every ounce of what you give to the community. But it's a community where I came from, where I grew up, who made me who I am. There's no need for me to say to the world, oh, look, I've done something for the school, or I've done something for this individual, or that or the other. I don't think it's necessary.
So do you think that your private works will work for you in the ballot box? I
think it will. I think people are beginning to recognize the respect and the I suppose the importance of one's dignity and self-worth. It is not correct for us to be labeled as being poor, lazy, and unwilling to work hard. When we demonstrate those things, it only reinforces that perception. And it's something that I'm trying to work very hard against to dispel, because we're not poor. I mean, if you've been to any of the houses in Masqué, you'd wonder where you are in the country. So I don't think we're poor. I think we've had some issues in terms of access to opportunity, and I think with the Labour Party getting into office, in particular putting you first, I think we will be able to arrest some of those issues and see a change that Ansari Kanris certainly deserves.
And how has been the reception? You've been on the ground from last year, and even before that.
Yes.
Years before that.
Correct.
How do you think the reception has been by persons?
It's a very large constituency geographically. There are pockets of the constituency that are more favorable to Labour Party, and there are pockets who have given their support traditionally to the United Workers' Party. And I must, to be quite honest, say here in all honesty, a lot of the good reception I'm getting is not because of all of my good work. I'm inheriting a reputation from my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncles, my aunts, my cousins who've done stuff in the community. So to be quite honest, I am standing on their shoulders, to be quite honest. And that is one of the main reasons why I am determined not to disappoint what they've done before. Because I'm borrowing from a legacy which I have to live intact when I exit the stage. So whoever else is coming after me could pick up that same Girard name and do whatever it is that needs to be done for the country, for the community. That's very, very important to me.
Okay, very good. So the Freedom Bay project,
correct.
As I said, in your other life, you were of the business class.
Yes.
How has that project fared in St. Lucia, and why did you think it necessary to have a project like that?
And it's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. I say to people all the time, when I got involved in the Freedom Bay project, it was not as if I was on the street looking for some opportunity to exploit my country or exploit anyone involved in the process. I had a particular view, as if you want to do business in my country, you need to have respect for the individuals of that country. I was able to get to that position because I had this fundamental belief. We were, I suppose, and that could be verified, I don't think before we actually presented to the National Trust any developer ever did that in St. Lucia. I don't believe that when we paid people their property, we paid them market value. We did not try to sort of erode any value of someone or the community. We made sure that when we did business, it was always above board, transparent, and recognizing the value of people's land and their assets. We did not do anything without the permission of the DCA and the government. We did nothing that was contrary to the findings of the limits of acceptable change governing the PMA. And we, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, we came into St. Lucia, we spent a significant sum of money, unlike what we're seeing happening now. The truth of the matter is, the current Prime Minister never thought that I was of sufficient pedigree to be involved in such a project.
Yes,
I mean, he said it when he was the Minister of Tourism, and he said it yet again when he was the Prime Minister. So when he made this overture to my business partner in the UK, essentially saying, if you want this business to continue, you need to get rid of me, that sort of brought an immediate end to the project. On the advice of the directors, the lawyers, we put the company into receivership as a way to protect the assets of the investors. If you're not sure what's going to happen with something, the safest thing to do is to put it into receivership. That way you're not culpable for anything in the interim period. So that is what we did. So if it were not for the prying hands and the views of the Prime Minister, we would have had a hotel in Sofia by now. Because we already commenced. I mean, there are buildings there with that we already commenced.
So you're saying, and I mean, I've heard it repeated even on public television, that the Prime Minister made statement that you would risk an entire project, an entire investment, which was going to bring much needed employment, all the spill off that would go to the communities because
I was not of sufficient pedigree. And you notice now we have some people on the internet trying to portray as if we were going to build on the shoulder of the Piton. We were never going to build in Policy Area 1 because we never owned property in Policy Area 1. So I noticed people trying to spin all sort of things, all sort of ideas that we were supposed to build on the Pitons, but that's far from the truth. Anybody who worked with Freedom Bay or the project at the time knew we took due care and consideration for everything that we did, from the EIA, which was done by some pretty prominent solutions, to the engineers we engaged in St. Lucia, to the consultants. Everything was done transparent and above board, and with professionals, St. Lucian professionals at it. So, so I suppose the government needs to attempt to justify what they're doing around the corner, so they want to throw Freedom Bay in the mix, but there's no truth to any of that.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, and it's just really unfortunate that such something could be derailed by a Prime Minister just because you don't have sufficient pedigree. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. You are St. Lucian after all.
And that is something. When the time comes, the people of Answering Canaries will demonstrate to the Prime Minister in government in the ballot box.
Very nice.
I'm from there, so anything you say about me, you say it about them, because they're the ones who made me who I am. Exactly. So an attack against me, a personal attack against me in terms of my pedigree, is a personal attack against the community that made me who I am.
Exactly. Well, no, that's very interesting. This is only our first segment of our show, and we're getting to know Wayne Girard, or getting to know, yes, you had been endorsed from last year, 2019. But you've been on the ground.
Yes, I've been busy doing what matters. If you determine to be the tribune of the people, I think it's important to spend as much time as possible getting to know what their views are. And that is very important to me. Getting to know the fears, the aspirations of the people who I am seeking to represent. There's no point in me saying things without having understood what their frustrations, what their fears, what their aspirations are.
Okay.
And that was deliberate. Get to know the people as much as possible, connect with them, and then you go out into the wider country and say what you intend to do for your community.
Okay, well, we have to take a break now. And when we come back, we will talk about what you have consulted with your constituents to do for the constituency of Answering Canaries.
Thank you.
St. Lucia, we'll take a break, but we'll be right back with Chill and Chat with Wayne Girard. Welcome back to Chill and Chat, St. Lucia. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis, and with me, Wayne Girard, endorsed candidate for Answering Canaries. Mr. Girard, when we left for the break, we were talking about the consultation that you've been having with constituents. What are your findings? What do you feel that you got with the needs of the persons from Answering Canaries?
The constituency is, I suppose, divided into various areas of the constituency. So there are different views in different parts of the constituency. So let's begin at Canaries. So, for example, Canaries has a pretty interesting culture of manufacturing. I mean, when you think of Place Cassave, you think of the soap production. It's quite interesting that we have not done more to take advantage of that specific skill that is resident in canneries. And it's one of the things that I intend to progress once I become the MP of canneries, of ancillary canneries. There's the issue of the fishermen. Is it necessary, or is it okay now to spend 10, 12 hours at sea and coming back without any catch? Should we not be considering a different way of going out to sea, perhaps a different vessel? I mean, there's a very interesting report that was done about canneries specifically, in terms of what the community thought was required going into 2020. It's a shame that the current MP has not spent too much time following through with some of the very good suggestions that were made in that report. I mean, for example, if a fisherman comes from sea at the moment, where does he store his engine? If you have a toothache at the moment in ancillary canneries, specifically canneries, where do you go? You need to be sent to Soufrière. I mean, there's some pretty simple things that I think that needs to be done that just simply has not gotten the attention that it deserves. When you then move into ancillary, because of this situation, the village of ancillary is different from the outskirts of ancillary. With regards to the village of ancillary, sewage and housing is a major issue. It's a major issue. It's simply unacceptable that in 2020 people are still going to the bathroom in disposable container or a plastic bag, and only have limited access to the public facility. I mean, nobody knows when they're going to get a bellyache or need to go to the bathroom. So this idea of having dedicated times for a public facility to open is just unacceptable.
But was it always like that?
I don't know. I think I don't know. I think when under the tenure of the Labour Party, I am not too sure. Based on who that I've spoken to, I'm not too sure it was always like that. This seems to be a more recent phenomenon where they say to you essentially between this time and that time is the only time you get access to the public facility. It's crazy. I mean, during COVID, during the lockdown, I mean, there was a major issue with that. I mean, what were people supposed to do in the interim? Constantly wash your hands, X, Y, and Z, but yet still no access to running water. So it's a serious issue, and I think it is something, given the sort of the housing policy of the Labour Party, it's something that we need to look into when we get into office. How do we regenerate the community, the village of ancillary canneries? It's just unacceptable in 2020 that we live the way that we live. Then you move on further into Roseau, which is again the old sugar belt. An area which is very dear to the heart of Kenny Anthony. He's always said that it's one thing he wanted to make sure that he did. I know there was some land that was already acquired for relocation. And again, it's something that we need to discuss once we get into the office, how we make that transition from where they are to where they want to be. Now, I guess there's a whole discussion when it comes to relocating people and the idea of them having grown accustomed to a certain convenience. And those are conversations we need to have with people when we're relocating them, not just shift them and put them somewhere. There needs to be an intervening period where the conveniences that they had before are still in place. A shuttle service, for example. Access to employment, because in Roseau is a major economic hub at the moment. A lot of business takes place in Roseau at the moment. So you can't just relocate them and not give consideration to how people earn a living. And then you move into the agricultural belt of Roseau, of sort of going into Mondo, Millet, Jacmel. There's so much that could be done with the bananas, not just the fruit, but the other elements of the plant. And I suppose that is some of the things we will go into closer to, I suppose, election day. We need to be mindful not to say too much now, because the emperor's clothes might be stolen.
Yes,
and we need to bear the advice of the Bible. There's a time to speak and a time to keep quiet. So, to be quite honest, there's quite a bit in terms of what we want to do for the ancillary canneries. We've spent a lot of time asking people, finding out, looking at the feasibility of doing certain things. So it's not pie in the sky. I mean, I'll give you an example. Since 2007, the United Workers' Party has been speaking about village tourism.
Yes.
It's now 13 years on. Have you seen any?
I remember there were some beach chairs. Wasn't there some beach chairs that the current MP put on summer?
I mean, there was a very feeble attempt to do something.
Yes.
But just consider something. The Minister of Tourism, depending on where you or who you speak to, 98% of the tourists who come to St. Lucia visit the Sulphur Springs or
Yes.
Soufrière to see the Piton. They drive through our constituency either on a regular basis or days when there are cruise ships in the harbour, or they take a boat and they go down to Soufrière. How many of them actually stop in the community, spend time in the community, spend money in the community? And it's a very serious question. Given he is the Minister of Tourism, what has he done to encourage people to stop and spend time in ancillary canneries? We have the situation of the assets that are within the community. If you were to go to Soufrière, for example, and visit the waterfall, or snorkel or dive, you need to pay a contribution to the
Yes.
Soufrière Regional Development Foundation. Why is it that ancillary canneries does not have a development foundation, given the assets that we have? Tourists could now bathe in our waterfalls for free. They could snorkel in our waters for free without making a contribution to what is an already vulnerable society, a community. So I'm thinking the idea of having a more holistic approach to the development of the community is very important, and that certainly is lacking now.
No, ancillary canneries, I recall, and I think it's under the St. Lucia Labour Party's
Heritage tourism. Correct.
A very vibrant street party.
Correct.
Everyone
Correct.
went down. What has become of that? And even before COVID?
I mean, Creole pot in canneries is almost dead now. I mean, fish fry and ancillary is completely dead. And again, it shows that the current MP of ancillary canneries does not understand the seriousness of the job that he's decided to do. There's a reason why Grosley thrives economically and on a Friday night. It's because there's transportation to and from Grosley throughout the night. Ancillary canneries, after a certain period, there's no access to transportation. If you want people to move, come and spend time in the community, we need to deal with this transportation issue. Now there's this issue of robbery. It's a very simple thing. After a certain period, we don't use money. A token system, I mean, everybody has smartphones now. There is something we could use other than cash. So it can be the simple excuse of, oh, we can't get buses on the road because there's a situation of robbery. It's not enough anymore. There are things that we could do rather than exchange cash for people to commute, to be able to commute, take a bus and go down to ancillary or go down to canneries to enjoy Creole pot or fish fry, and that is just simply not happening.
You've given this a lot of thought, Mr.
I have
Girard.
indeed. This is a very only this idea of politics and wanting to be responsible for lives of people is a very serious endeavor. It's not something that we should take very lightly, and I have given it a lot of thought. I have engaged people to come into the community to do research, to understand the challenges in the community. It's not something you do because you were not successful in doing something else.
Yes, because like we rightly know, you had options.
That's something you do. Yeah, it's something that you need to do because it's a very challenging situation, and given we have this mentality that exists, winners takes all in the community. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to say to the people of ancillary canneries, when I become the MP, I am the MP for everyone, not the MP for a select few. We need to move away from dividing our people once we hold the reins of power again. We need to look more seriously about what we do for our community. I mean, our political leader has won 5 elections, and there's a reason why he's done it.
Yes.
There's a reason. So there's a lot for us to take from his example. So we need to spend as much time making the changes to people's lives in the community.
Okay. So what do you think about the current economic crisis, the health crisis? How do you think that, again, you've said you've done your research, you've been in consultation, but did it factor our present reality?
And it's something that I want people to pay very close attention to. We've noticed that the Minister of Tourism and the government has spent a lot of time discussing the COVID protocols and reopening the economy, but they've never discussed our plan for the future for the tourism industry. So if this is our lead sector, Why isn't there a very frank and open discussion as to what it is that the government intends to do going forward? It is clear COVID has had a significant impact on us. Not as many people will be traveling as they've done in the past. I mean, it was easy for the government to bang the tables in Parliament to say they've had the highest arrivals since recorded history, which again is not entirely accurate. But nothing has been said about what we're going to do going forward with the tourism industry. The current MP of Ansari Candidates has spent a lot of time training people for jobs of yesterday, but nothing to do with jobs of today and for the future. So I think we need to be very mindful of what it is that we are inheriting. At my AGM a few weeks ago, I made the point to the audience that we spend a lot of time discussing how we're going to get into office, how we're going to win the election, but we don't spend sufficient time what we're going to do once we get in office. And that conversation has taken place in Ansari Candidates.
Okay.
And it is, and I think we're very excited as to the prospects.
I know it's a little, once you're having those conversations within your constituency, I think we should be happy for that, because we know that there are others who have no qualms in...
But we make commitments. The Labour Party, we make commitments, not promises.
Not promises.
We speak facts, not facts. So just listen carefully to everything that is all of a sudden, I mean, you smell tar, so an election is near. I mean, if you go into Jackmel, for example, when you look at what was done with the Early Childhood Center, I mean, just imagine an early childhood center. And when you actually look at the design of the building, it appears as if there shouldn't be any interaction with natural daylight or what's happening on the outside. I mean, the young children, why are we caging them up? I mean, the only windows facing the road are bathrooms, from what I've observed. So I'm not too sure that serious thought has gone into where we want to take the community. And that is something that I intend to make a difference in terms of spend time understanding what is required of the community, from the community, to take it to the next level.
So you think there's a different way? You said that we're spending time training people for jobs of yesterday.
Correct.
Do you believe that there is another way that we can, as a country?
And it is rooted, and I suppose they always say youth economy, how are you going to pay for it, how are you going to do this? But they need to realize that there's this fourth industrial revolution, and the youth economy is sort of anchored in the idea that the jobs of yesterday are not necessarily going to be the jobs of the future. It would be wrong of us to promise and to say to people, all the jobs that existed in the past are going to exist going into the future. The youth economy is one way of dealing with the myriad of opportunities that are now available, not just to young people, when we say young people between the ages of 18 and 30, but also those young at heart.
So, okay. So this fourth industrial revolution that you speak about, and I know that we've been talking some agri-tech, some smart cities, and people say it's buzzwords, but if you read and if you look at best practices out there, these things have been done.
And generating significant revenue for countries who have adopted certain aspects of it. I have some views as to what we could do as a region, the OACS, that would put us in a very competitive advantage. We've done tourism very well. There is a very interesting area within this emerging fourth industrial revolution that we as a region could capitalize on. And I think we won't want to steal the thunder of the political leader, so I'll leave certain announcements to him. But there are things that we could definitely do to give us the competitive advantage going into the future. It's not enough for us to rely on tourism. Manufacturing we can do to a very great extent because of the cost of production. There need to be another pillar in terms of how we're going to develop the country going forward. I
mean, I'm very excited. I get snippets of it here and there. But it really goes to show that a Labour Party is really planning differently, thinking outside of the box. we've had to be innovative after the collapse of the banana industry.
Correct.
We went into the tourism sector with Philip J. Pierre, really
Minister of Tourism, yes.
Minister of Tourism had
Yes,
the
yes.
best record on the books.
Correct, correct.
And now we're again in 2020. Labour Party is going to once again save the St. Lucian economy, which I dare say is near collapse if we don't get it right very, very soon.
And it's something that I spent some time at the University of Oxford understanding fintech and the opportunities that this fourth industrial revolution could provide to small island developing states. It's a very significant thing, and it is a very significant industry. I'll give you an example. In ancillary canneries at the moment, if you go into the village, if you don't have cash or good credit record, you can't purchase anything. There's no ATMs. What do? If you want to send money for a relative in the village, do they necessarily have to wait until Monday to go into Western Union? Is there not a gap in between that via the smartphone that we could use to allow people to transact?
Yeah.
There are quite a bit of opportunities that are available to communities like ancillary canneries with the use of technology that could help transform the community. It's very, very interesting.
I mean,
area.
I'm really excited for the people of ancillary canneries. I guess you're well traveled, well read, and you have that investment background coming with you. So I really think that is a plus for the people of ancillary canneries.
I mean, I spent a month in India. Because it's a very interesting situation in India of this rural-urban shift and how you deal with this development in the rural communities. And I want to say to the people of ancillary canneries, the goal is actually in the countryside, not the city. A lot of them wake up and travel into the city, into the north to work, and at the end of the month, they work in poor. We need to find ways, and we have some ideas as to getting gainful employment for the people of ancillary canneries within a certain radius of the community. So they don't have to travel all the way to Grosley and pay 2 sets of transportation, only at the end of the month to be worse off than when they actually went. So
is this a good time to purchase property in ancillary canneries?
It's always a good time to purchase property in ancillary canneries. We need to be mindful, though, of some of the considerations. We need to ensure that we leave a little bit for those who are less fortunate.
Yes.
And don't allow those with the economic power to move into ancillary canneries and buy up all the choice properties. We need to at least safeguard some of it for the people of ancillary canneries.
Yes, and because earlier we spoke about the situation with housing and not a lot of people own that property. So for you, there would be a move to getting more people in ancillary, especially.
If you want to change people's acceptance and belief that where they are is where they need to be, that there isn't a better for them, I think housing plays a very significant role in uplifting people's aspirations. I think once you could feed people, clothe people, and house people, it begin to allow them to see better for themselves. That's a very big issue in ancillary canneries. Too many people believe that where they are currently is where they need to remain. We could all do better. I have done better. I have had the opportunity. I've gone overseas and worked very hard and made something of myself. I could say the same for any of the young people in ancillary canneries at the moment. There is the talent and the intelligence there. I mean, last night I met a young child who wants to be an astronaut. 2 days ago I met somebody who wants to get into robotics from ancillary canneries. So why would I go on television and portray them as being poor and lazy and undeserving when they have those kinds of aspirations?
Okay.
I can't.
I mean, this is really inspiring, and I'm excited for the people of ancillary canneries when you become the next MP and the St. Lucia Labour Party forms
the next government.
But St. Lucia, I have to take a break.
Yes.
We'll be right back with Chill and Chat with Wayne Girard. Welcome back to Chill and Chat, St. Lucia. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis, and my guest, Mr. Wayne Girard, endorsed candidate for the St. Lucia Labour Party for Ancillary Canneries. So this last segment, we're going to have some fun with Mr. Girard. I'm really excited about this segment. We're going to have some fire questions. We want some quick responses. Again, just so we can get to know Wayne Girard.
Yes.
So, my first question to you: who is the one person who changed your life?
I would say my daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I'd say my daughter.
Very nice.
Yes.
What gives you hope?
The young people of Ancillary Canneries.
Yes.
Yeah, that gives me a lot of hope. The young people of Ancillary Canneries.
Right.
Their enthusiasm, their energy, their determination, despite all the odds, to make something of themselves.
Okay. What's your favorite place on earth or in St. Lucia?
My mom's kitchen.
I won't even ask why. We know what happens in the kitchen.
My mother's kitchen, yeah.
Okay. What should be required reading for every human?
I will go with The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Don't take anything personally. Be impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions. And do your best in everything that you do.
Yes. Please be yourself. Very
Yes.
good. Green figs and saltfish or bouillon?
Green pig and saltfish all the time.
Oh, no way.
All the
Bouillon
time.
person.
Green
Team
pig and
bouillon.
saltfish all the time.
Nice pigtail bouillon. Oh my God. Yes. What's the greatest gift we can give ourselves?
I think the greatest gift we could give ourselves is to treat ourselves like we matter. Putting you first. We should treat ourselves like we matter.
Very
And
nice.
that would open up a whole array of things if we begin to treat ourselves like we matter.
And then everybody else the way we treat ourselves.
Selves.
Look at that.
Putting you first.
Putting you first. Okay. Why Philip J. Pierre for Prime Minister?
Quick fire. So, integrity, competence, compassion.
Oh, lovely. Oh, well put. What keeps you up at night?
Reflecting on the conversations, the aspirations, the fears, the views of the constituents that I meet on a daily basis.
Okay. If you had a superpower, what would that be?
I'd go with teleportation.
So you could zoom here and zoom to India.
To see my family, come back.
Okay. No quarantine.
No quarantine. No large bill.
Oh yeah, that too. Great. Favorite song?
I'll go with Ganel Sick, Lord, Watch Over Our Shoulders.
Okay, I think I'll have to Google that one. Not familiar.
Yeah.
One before the last. Chasing waterfalls or lounging on the beach?
Chasing waterfalls. Always an adventure for me. Chasing waterfalls.
And you guys seem to have a number of them in the constituency.
Which we need to ensure that it contributes to the development of the constituency.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yes.
Jeune Creole or Carnival?
Shooting Girl.
Oh my goodness. No.
You said we're gonna have fun. Shooting Girl.
Carnival.
I know, but I know that's gonna make you cringe when I said Junior Creole, not Carnival.
Yes. What is it about a Jeune Creole for you?
Food.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that is true. You like
Told you, my mom's kitchen.
food. Okay, fair enough. That's very interesting. Great segment with you, Wayne. As we wrap up, Wayne, any last thoughts or words as the upcoming general election intensifies? We see a lot of things happening on social media. I know in your constituency, which you're in every single day. What are your thoughts? What kind of campaign would you like to see, ideally?
I think entirely people focused. I think we need to be very careful of the promises that are going to be made, the last minute sort of rush to do things. It's as if all of a sudden the constituents of ancillary canneries have become visible to the MP. I think we need to be very mindful that we need to stop allowing politicians to neglect us for 48 months and for the last 12 months come and do a bit of a road project of that, and okay for them to think all is forgiven. I think we need to be very careful that when it comes to making a decision as to who should be the next representative of the constituency, we need to think of who has the best interests, who is a product of the constituency, and who is genuinely concerned in making a difference to the community. I think those things should matter quite a bit when we decide to cast our ballot at the next general election.
Okay. I do hope that the people of Ancillary Canneries have been listening to us, and even St. Lucians, because I know how, you know, we could get sometimes a little blinded by the blitz and the glam of it all, but the hard work is within the constituency.
The hard work is where it really is on the ground, meeting people, speaking to them, listening to them. That is the most important thing. And we can't do away with that. It is the most important thing.
Yes. Yeah. So Wayne, I do wish you all the best in the campaign.
Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I know it's hard work until the election day. I know it's even going to be harder work once the St. Lucia Labour Party forms the next government.
Correct.
But there is work to be done.
There's work to be done. There's work to be done.
I think you've provided good hope.
Yes, I think we are on the right track. I think we all have our eyes on the prize. I think despite what they may do to or say about our first deputy political leader, try to intimidate us, try to keep us, I suppose, contained, I think we need to resist as much as possible. The people of St. Lucia deserve no less than a fully functioning, brave Labour Party. We should never give up that fight, despite what they may attempt to do to members of our party or the endorsed candidates. We should fight.
Fight, St. Lucia. St. Lucia, that's it for me today on Chill and Chat. Thank you again to our guest, Mr. Wayne Girard. And St. Lucia, Chill and Chat, brought to you by the St. Lucia Labour Party. I'm your host, Mondi Lewis. And if you're not registered to vote, be sure to get registered. Make sure your name is on the voters list where you last voted. Just make sure you tick those boxes to make sure that come election day, that you put the X by the symbol and name of the candidate for the St. Lucia Labour Party.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.